Welcome to this special edition of Legal AF, Trump on Trial. I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF, joined by my co-host and host of Trump on Trial, Karen Friedman Agnifilo. We wanted to let everybody know that we're going to be doing special editions of Legal AF, hosted by Karen Friedman Agnifilo and I, every step of the way as this Manhattan District criminal attorney trial against Donald Trump for, you want to call it the hush money payments, you want to call it the first election interference, you want to call it Donald Trump's business records fraud. I know Karen's going to have a name that she's going to want to make sure that you all call it, but that trial set to take place on April 15th, and there is no one better in the United States and the world to break down each and every step than Karen Friedman Agnifilo, who was formerly the number 2 at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, spent about 30 years working at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office before going into private practice, where Karen Friedman Agnifilo currently practices in private practice, in addition to being a co-host here on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF. So everybody, you can expect every morning and every afternoon there to be first a What to Expect Today by Karen Friedman Agnifilo in the morning, and then a recap in the afternoon about what took place and to contextualize everything. These special edition Legal AF Trump on Trial editions will go in the live feed on the Midas Touch Network. Make sure you subscribe and make sure every morning and every afternoon you check in to get these live updates. We will set these live updates in advance, and we will start to give you all a schedule of when you can check in. But Karen Friedman Agnifilo, I figure we should take this very first special edition, Trump on Trial special edition of Legal AF. First, I just want to remind everybody about your background in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, so everybody knows, who may be new to the Midas Touch Network, the experience you had in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and why it's not hyperbole when I said that I don't believe there's anybody in the United States who's got more experience than you to let people know what's happening in this case. Then I want to talk about what this case is about, and also the difference between this being a criminal case and a civil case. And then finally, I want to talk about where we are right now in the case, as we are. This is on Wednesday when we are doing this, and so we're a few days away from the trial starting, 3 business days away from the trial starting, 5 actual days. So let's just start, Karen, with before even your background. You really wanted to do this special edition, and you and I had been talking about it for some time. Why do we even start there? Why do you think it's so important that we're doing these special edition Legal AF lives every morning and every afternoon covering this trial?
Look, I think it's important because the Manhattan DA's office, New York State, Judge Merchan, everything they do is slightly different than every other judge, every other jurisdiction, et cetera. So to the extent that people can stay informed in detail and understand exactly what is happening, I think it's important. What we've seen Trump do in his civil trials, both the E. Jean Carroll case and the civil fraud case, is we've seen him give many press conferences where he will be in court, something will happen. Thankfully, there is a record and a court reporter who writes down everything that happens. But Trump walks out and he says things that are opposite of what actually happened. I mean, just provably false. And the thing is, when you read the transcripts, which you and I do, and Popak does every single day in those trials, when we can find them, at least me, I'm always scratching my head. Wait, where is it that it said what Trump just said it said? And you have to read and reread. Well, guess what? It's not in there. And it took me a few of these to figure out that he just doesn't tell the truth. He's not an accurate reporter. So I think it's very important that we all accurately report what happens. And the reason I wanted to do this, and I feel so strongly about it, is certainly I'm not the biggest expert in the world on really any particular subject, but I am an expert on the Manhattan DA's office because I did spend my entire career there. I was there for almost 30 years, and I was a trial lawyer in the trial division. I supervised the lawyers who are and worked with, and they were colleagues, the lawyers who are trying this case. I appeared before Judge Mershon many, many, many times, and I know this charge. I know this office. I know the law. I know how jury selection works and all of the things that, people are going to be talking about. And I thought, here I am on the Midas Touch Network with all of this knowledge. I want our listeners and followers to know everything that I know, so that when Donald Trump comes out and says what he says and does what he does, people can be armed with accurate information so that they can make their own determinations and have their own, make their own, kind of opinions about what happened, right? Formulate it for yourself. So I'm about giving information just like you are, Ben. And that's what this series is about, so people can understand it. It's also really important, right? It's the first time in history that our former president is on trial. And so I think it's important that everybody understand, and he's about to run for office again. So we need accurate information, truth, not misinformation. And so that's why I think this was so important and why I wanted to do it.
There was a lot of insiders also, kind of the experts, the media class. They wanted the inside track from you to give them that info. And what I loved and what I love about this network and what I loved your idea is you go, you know what? I want the Midas Mighty, I want the Legal AF community to know at the same time. This way, if any of these insiders are calling me and asking me, hey, what's going to happen or what do you expect? I'm going to say, you know where to find it. It's right here on the Midas Touch YouTube channel. And the Midas Touch YouTube channel gets this information first and right away, which is incredible. And I think it's also a way to kind of rethink and democratize this information and to try to remove the spin attached to it as well, which Trump is so often able to, and Trump's team is able to utilize in situations like this. So let's talk about your background. You hinted at it there in the intro. If you can go through your time at the, you don't have to go through it all, but the district attorney's office up until you left the district attorney's office to being number 2 in that office. What does that mean to be number 2? You had some interesting colleagues there, for example, working with special counsel Jack Smith along the way. And also there were times where you had served as the acting district attorney for one reason or another in Manhattan, in the office right now that's prosecuting Donald Trump. So if you can give us that background so we can help everybody understand the foundation for your expertise.
Yeah, I started in the Manhattan DA's office right out of law school in the early 90s. And shortly after I joined, Jack Smith joined. We were in the same small little, trial bureau is what they call it. And we worked together pretty closely. So I definitely know him. I haven't really not recently worked with him for sure, but in the early 90s, we worked together frequently, and he was a superstar then. And he was just an all around great guy. He left and became a federal prosecutor, and I stayed. I did all sorts of violent crime, murders, rapes, robberies, all that kind of stuff. And I then went to the homicide investigation unit. After that, I went and prosecuted child abuse cases. I did gang cases. I mean, I've just done almost everything. The one thing I didn't do actually very much was white collar cases, which the case that we're going to be talking about, the Trump on trial case, is a white collar case. Frankly, I found them kind of boring. I really liked violent crime much more. And I think that's interesting because this trial might be somewhat boring for the people who are sitting in the courtroom, because it is white collar. It is about checks and entries into ledgers and business practices. it's not going to be a salacious, drama case, as much as the media and others want to portray it as a hush money case. This trial is really about just falsifying business practices. And there's going to be a lot of detail about that. I mean, look, there are some colorful characters, obviously, who will be testifying. And of course, Trump is going to create a circus and drama. And then I stayed at the DA's office. I left I can't remember when, but at some point to go work for the Mike Bloomberg administration, because I really thought he was just a great mayor, and I wanted to affect criminal justice policy. So I did that until 2010, when Cy Vance became district attorney, and I came back to work with Cy Vance, where I headed the trial division for a few years, which supervises about 300 lawyers, and at the time, about 100,000 cases per year at the Manhattan DA's office. And then he promoted me to be his number two, which is the chief assistant DA, where I basically did everything he wanted. I implemented everything he wanted, and we worked hand in hand together, and we managed the whole office together until I left 2 years ago, and now I'm in private practice, among other things that I'm doing with my life. So one of the things I did was I also, when I was at the DA's office, set up something called the Mental Health Court. And the reason I bring that up is the Office of Court Administration, who assigns judges to things. They assigned Judge Juan Merchan to the Mental Health Court. And so I used to go there to every graduation. It was just this amazing court that Judge Merchan is, I believe, still the head of. And so I've worked with him on cases in that court in particular, and have appeared there many times. So it's a very small world. I know all the players. And so I just think that in this particular case, of all the cases that Donald Trump is on trial on, there's certainly not one that I feel more comfortable talking about. And one more thing that you mentioned, Ben, that I just wanted to mention, you said whatever we're going to call this case when you introduced it, and that I'll have strong feelings about it. And of course, you were right about that, because it's interesting that for a while, the media was portraying it as a hush money case. And then they were saying that Alvin Bragg recently is trying to reframe it as an election interference case. I went back and I reread the statement of facts. It has always been characterized by Alvin Bragg, because that was filed the day he was arrested, or the day he was indicted. It's always been characterized as an election interference case. And so I think it's just the media who's been recently catching on that's what this is really about. And I want to also talk about how important it is that we don't characterize the case. The media, nobody characterizes the case. Now that we're on trial, let's characterize it how the judge is characterizing this case, because that's really what controls here. It's the judge who is determining what's relevant, what's not relevant, what's important, what's not important, and how it's going to be framed for the jury. So the judge this week, Judge Merchan, issued his jury instructions and his jury questions. And in it, he published to the parties and to the world what he's going to say to the jury when the jury comes in and he is doing voir dire, which is the jury selection process. The judge will charge the jury, and he gives them some language, right? He says, "Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, welcome. And I'm going to tell you about this case." And then he's going to go on to say, all the questions about whether they're fair and impartial. So I want to just read one of the first sentences in what the judge is calling this case to the jury, and therefore to the world, on the record. So this is the definitive line about what this case is about. The allegations are, in substance, that Donald Trump falsified business records to conceal an agreement with others to unlawfully influence the 2016 presidential election. Okay? That's his first sentence on what this case is about. So that is specifically what this case is about. The other thing too is, Ben, I was thinking the other day, I had a reporter call me, and I've had 100,000 reporters calling me, and they want me to talk to them about this case. And over again, I get this question about, why this case? Is this serious? Why, is this not, what? Nobody thinks this is a serious case, right? They think in comparison to his other cases that this isn't a serious case. And interestingly, when I was talking to them about it, and trying to explain it, at first what I was saying was, well, I guess if you're somebody charged with 2 murders and a rape case, I guess, yeah, your robbery case is not as serious, right, in the context. But yet it's still serious. It's still a felony. You don't get away with a free robbery, right? You don't get any freebies here. And I was thinking about it like that. And that's how I was describing it to people, that this is still a felony. This is a really serious case. If you or I were charged with falsifying business records in the first degree, a felony indictment in the Manhattan DA's office, I can tell you right now, my life would be over. Business as we know it, life as we know it, I'm facing jail time. Like, this would be the thing that consumed me and every client that I represent, people who are faced with this. This is a serious case. But more importantly, the more we think about this case, in some ways, Ben, I think this might be the most serious case. And I'm not saying it because I'm trying to reframe this for people or trick people the way Donald Trump does into thinking that the sky is purple, even though it's blue. Think about it. The more the evidence comes out in this case, the more you see all the times and all the people, and with suppressing the doorman story that we're going to hear about, suppressing the story. There was another woman coming forward who they paid off, right? I want to say her name was Karen McDougal, I believe. And then we've got this case. The reason this is the most serious case, and in some ways more serious than the January 6th case, is he actually did steal this election. He succeeded, right? I mean, he suppressed information from the voters, and the more I learned, the more I read in Norm Eisen, who has a book coming out. I was reading it. He has a passage in there that Donald Trump won the swing states by 80,000 votes. That's a very tiny number. Okay, that's so small that would trigger a recount anywhere. Okay, so it is shocking to me that he won by 80,000 votes. Who knows if all this information had come out, if the evangelical sect or the people who care about people cheating on their wife and trying to suppress it and then steal an election by by falsifying business records. It's fascinating to me. What if that would have made a difference? So because he did this, it's not the farthest leap to say he actually was able to steal the election, and we are where we are today. So I think this is going to, if the evidence comes out, look, everyone's innocent until they're proven guilty, and I believe that to my core. And if the people can't prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt, there should be a not guilty verdict. Plain and simple. But if the evidence comes out the way I think it's going to come out, and they can prove this case, what he did here, that the fact that he tried to suppress votes suppress information to get more votes, and actually stole an election. At least he failed after in the last election. At least he didn't succeed, right? At least Mike Pence did the right thing and Joe Biden became president. And yeah, that case is more dramatic because there was the insurrection and the storming the Capitol and people lost their lives. And yes, that was extremely serious. I'm not trying to take away from that. I'm also not trying to take away from the fact that Mar-a-Lago is about stealing our nation's greatest secrets and nuclear codes. But this was the foundation. This is the case that started it all and made it so we are where we are. And the new norm is fascism. The new norm is we're not a law and order country. It's okay to break the law. And so this case, I think, is extremely serious. And anyone who says otherwise, I just disagree strongly. And it's becoming more and more like this.
Karen, the fact that this is a criminal, not a civil case, how is that going to impact Donald Trump's physical appearance in the courtroom itself? Or rather, in the civil case, he would be able to come in whenever he wanted to, and he would show up for this thing, and he wasn't required to be there. In a criminal case, it's different. And do you also expect Justice Merchan to enforce the rules differently because it's in front of a jury It's not a bench trial. And also Justice Merchan has a bit of a different judicial demeanor than Justice Engoron.
Yeah, look, so just working backwards, I'm not sure Justice Merchan has such a different judicial demeanor than Justice Engoron. I think the big difference here is that jury versus non-jury. If Judge Engoron had a jury, I would expect that he would absolutely have conducted that case differently, because you can't let any information that's irrelevant or prejudicial or anything go to a jury. In a bench trial or a judge trial, you can be a lot more lenient because a judge can put those irrelevant things out of their mind. So I think that's the biggest difference in that case. But, this is a criminal case. Totally different ballgame than in a civil case. Yes, it's a trial. Yes, there is a judge and witnesses and et cetera. But other than that, it's totally different. There's a different burden of proof. You have to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a much higher standard than a preponderance of the evidence, which is what civil cases are about. Civil cases are more likely than not, it's you have a scale, it's equal, and you put a feather on the scale, and that's preponderance of the evidence. Beyond a reasonable doubt is not beyond all doubt, but beyond a doubt with which you can affix a reason. It's a very, very high burden. It's the same burden that's in every criminal courtroom in every case in this country, state or federal. And because of that, and because in a criminal case you can sentence someone to prison and take away their liberty, there are certain rights that attach to a criminal case that aren't necessarily present in a civil case, and the rules in a criminal case are so much more protective of the defendant's rights because of this. So as a result, defendants are required to be there for all parts of the case, because there's certain things that if you don't get the defendant's explicit waiver or consent or knowledge of, then that could actually be reversible error. And that's one of the things that came up in the judge's jury selection, the order that I was reading from when I read the judge's words. He talked about this concept that the defendant has an absolute right to be up at the bench during jury selection and hear what the jurors have to say in private. That's known as from a case called antimarchy, unless he explicitly waives it. So that's the kind of thing, and there are many, many things like that throughout a trial. And so the judge is going to require his presence. Now, the other thing the judge will do is the judge will issue him what's called Parker warnings. And those are warnings from another case called Parker. Things come from cases and they're named from cases like Miranda. Those are all last names of defendants, because every case is the people versus Donald Trump. And so, if you make case law based on a particular case, they just shorten it to the name of the last name of the defendant. So here it's Parker warnings. And that was a case that established that you have to give certain warnings to a defendant that if they voluntarily absent themselves from a courtroom, that the case will proceed in their absence, that all of the different things that he would have the right to do will still go on, and you can even be sentenced in absentia. So, but it's important, if you don't read someone their Parker warnings, then you can't proceed with a criminal trial if the person absconds. So, if they don't show up. So it's kind of an important thing, and the judge will require him to be there all day, every day, except on Wednesdays when the court has a calendar day and the trial is not sitting.
Well, I want to thank everybody for watching our first special edition Trump on Trial here on Legal AF. We're going to be doing this every morning for this week. Once the trial starts, we'll be doing a morning what to expect, and then we'll be doing an afternoon kind of recap and contextualize everything and where we're going. So this will all be on the live feed. Tomorrow, Karen, Friedman, Agnifilo, I want to talk about the players involved. Donald Trump's counsel, the Manhattan District Attorney lawyers. Those lawyers at the DA's office. You can give unique insight into who they are, their background, the other types of cases that they've tried before, what their style is. And then I want to discuss what you think jury selection's going to look like, and and then get into some of the other dynamics at play. So everybody make sure you're subscribed to this channel. You're checking in tomorrow morning on the live feed to get these updates. Karen, any final words before we wrap up our first special edition Legal AF Trump on trial?
Yeah, look, as the day, you and I have been speculating about whether Trump is going to successfully delay the start of this trial in 5 days. We still have 2 days left before he can continue to try. Like, see if he does. I'm still thinking that he could try to go to the Supreme Court. He keeps losing his appeals. He tried to appeal. He tried to get interim stays by the appellate division here, and so far he's lost a couple of them this week. So I still think the trial starting Monday, it's looking more and more like it. But let's see what happens.
Well, join us all in the morning with your coffee mug, or if it's me, your tea mug, or your morning your morning beverage of choice. We're going to be in this together, and don't you worry, don't you fret. We're going to guide you every step of the way with the top expert on these proceedings, Karen Friedman, Agnifilo. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe. We're also going to put this on our podcast feed as well, the Legal AF podcast feed. So make sure you subscribe, not just here on the YouTube, but also, if you're walking around, if you're in your car, if you do whatever on your phone, you can listen to it on the audio podcast as well, and share with friends, family, coworkers, and others who want to know what's going on and be educated on these topics. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Real quick, Meta just changed their algorithm to suppress political content. Please follow our Instagram @MeidasTouch right now as we head towards 400,000 followers so you don't miss a beat.